The wind howled like a dying beast. Thick snowflakes fell from the gray sky, covering everything in white. The sun had not been seen for days. The air was thin, dry, and deadly cold. This was planet Valexianina, place the galaxy had already forgotten. Beneath a half-broken metal dome, a small alien girl lay curled up, hugging her furry creature tightly against her chest. Her name was Vera. She was only 14 cycles old, with soft violet skin and glowing teal eyes that now stared blankly at the flickering power light above her. Her pet, a round-eared, three-tailed creature, called a Yanni, whimpered softly, trembled in her arms, its small body too weak to keep warm. She whispered to it in her language, her lips dry and cracking, "Stay with me, little one, just a little longer." The dome had once been a research outpost, but it was a grave. The other aliens her people had evacuated 2 days ago when the heat systems failed.
But they didn't take her.
They said her bond with the Yanni made her too emotional, too weak. She was a burden. Left her behind with only a half-empty thermal pack and a broken radio. Now the heat pack was dead. The radio only made static sounds. Her breath came in short puffs. Her fingers had turned a strange color. Her Yanni stopped moving for a moment, and she panicked, rubbing its tiny chest with both hands, whispering, "No, no. Please, don't go." It twitched out relief, but only for a moment. Her vision blurred. Her body felt heavier with every breath. The last thing she saw before her eyes closed was a red light flashing outside the shattered dome wall. A flare. Miles away, a human man crashed hard into the snow, his escape pod screeching across the icy surface. The pod's emergency systems barely held together as it slid and stopped near a cluster of jagged rocks. John Keller, a rugged lone scavenger from Earth, groaned as he pushed open the hatch. Smoke filled the air. His left arm hurt badly, but he could still move. "Great," he muttered, stepping out into the freezing wind, from frying pan to freezer. His ship had been shot down by pirates while traveling between trade zones. He had ejected in the last second, hoping the pod's tracking beacon would bring help. The beacon blinked red, but it wasn't sending a signal, it was picking one up. A faint heat signature, it was close. He narrowed his eyes, pulling his jacket tighter and checking the small handheld scanner. Someone or something was alive nearby, on a planet like this. It was impossible and dangerous. Still, John moved toward the signal. His boots crunched over the ice, every step slower than the last as the storm thickened. Then he saw it. A half-covered dome in the snow. He pushed through the broken wall, his flashlight sweeping the shadows. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He walked deeper into the structure. And then, in a corner covered in frost and silence, he found them. A small alien girl holding an unconscious creature, both wrapped in an old thermal blanket. They weren't moving. John dropped to one knee, checked the creature first, barely breathing, and the girl's skin ice cold, but her chest was rising and falling very slowly, still alive. Just barely. "Damn," he whispered. "You're just a kid." There was no time to think. He wrapped the blanket tighter around them, pulled off his own coat, and layered it over her. Then he lifted both the girl and the Yanni into his arms. "Hang on, little one. You're not dying on me today." Back in his pod, John placed them near the last working heater. It wasn't much, but it would keep the space warm enough for survival. If the power held, he gave the Yanni a few drops of water. Its eyes fluttered open. Then, the girl, her eyes opened slightly. She saw a strange figure, tall, wrapped in layers, the short beard and deep-set human eyes. She screamed. Her scream was weak, raspy but filled with fear. John raised both hands quickly, stepping back. Hey, calm down. I'm not going to hurt you," the Yanni growled weakly in her arms. She looked around, breathing fast, afraid. She didn't understand his words, but she understood his calm voice and gentle hands. John slowly picked up a warm bowl of nutrient soup and sat beside her. He said nothing. He just placed the bowl near her and waited. She stared at him, unsure. Still cold, but alive. Outside, the snow kept falling. but inside that tiny metal pod. 3 heartbeats now beat against the cold, and fate had just begun to write the rest of their story. Asterisk, the heater in John's escape pod hummed faintly, glowing. Soft orange in the dim interior. Thin wisps of steam rose from a cracked mug near the power panel. The tiny space was quiet, too quiet. Outside, the storm still raged like a wild animal scratching at the metal walls. But inside, something delicate was happening. A life was. Hanging by a thread, Vera lay curled up with her injured Yanni, the alien creature's tails twitching now and then. Her skin, once violet and glowing, looked pale. Her breaths came slowly, but they were no longer shallow. She was alive, but confused. Her eyes fluttered open again. The heat stung at first. After so much cold, it almost felt painful. She blinked. The strange creature, tall, strange skin, beard, alien eyes, was sitting on the other side of the small pod. He wasn't looking at her. He was carefully repairing something near the power cables. His hand moved with care, yet his face looked tired, focused. Human, she thought. The word itself made her stomach twist. Her people had warned her about humans. Wild, dangerous, reckless. They called them beasts in disguise. But this one had saved her. The Yanni whimpered in her lap. She stroked it softly, and it leaned into her hand. Just then, the human turned his head. Their eyes met. Vera sat up suddenly, gasping. Her back hit the pod wall. Her fingers clutched the Yanni tighter. She reached for a sharp metal shard lying nearby, just in case. John slowly raised his hands, palms open. No weapon. No danger, he said gently. Of course, she didn't understand. The words, but his tone wasn't harsh. His body didn't move forward, stayed still, almost like a statue in peace. Vera glanced at the steaming mug. The scent was strange, but warm. Her body trembled again. John saw it. He slowly pushed the mug toward her, inch by inch. Then, he picked up a second mug and drank from it himself, smiling faintly. Vera didn't smile, but she didn't scream either. She lowered the shard, tiny. Progress, hours passed. The pod's power was barely holding. John had turned off the secondary systems to give more energy to the heater. His fingers were numb from checking damaged circuits. He sat near the girl now, but not too close. He opened a ration pack and began to eat. It was dry and tasteless, but survival food was never about flavor then. He offered a piece to her. She sniffed it, hesitated, then took it one small bite. She chewed slowly, then paused, then took another bite. Her stomach growled. John smiled again. See? A poison. Vera blinked, not understanding, but the soft tone made her relax just a little. The Yanni curled in her lap, purring softly. Its wound was bandaged on by John with old medical tape and part of his own shirt. She hadn't noticed it before now. She did. Her people would never have done that. They didn't care for animals like that, as is human. He helped it like he helped her. She watched him more closely now. The man was building something with wires and tools. Some kind of transmitter she didn't know. But the way he worked told her he was trying to signal someone to leave her. Heart sank. What if he left her behind? Again. Her hand clutched the Yanni tightly. Her fingers shook. Suddenly dash bang. The pod shook slightly. A sharp sound echoed from outside. John stood quickly, grabbing a small laser pistol. He looked at the scanner. Something's out there, he whispered. Vera didn't need a translation. She could feel it in the air. Pressure. The fear. The danger. The human moved to the door. Slowly, carefully, he looked back at her and pointed to a corner and made a stay motion with his hand. Vera nodded. He opened the door just a little. Snow burst in. A flash of movement outside, something fast scurried past the edge of the pod. Growled. John shut the door quickly and locked it. It's not alone, he muttered. He sat near the door, weapon ready, eyes sharp. Vera stared at him from the shadows. She saw no fear on his face, only focus. For the first time, she didn't feel like a burden. For the first time, Someone was ready to fight for her. A tear slid down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. Outside, something circled the pod. Inside, the heater flickered, but the warmth of one human and one frightened alien girl now burned stronger than the storm. The pod creaked in the wind like an old tree, ready to fall. Frost had crept in from the seams, and the heater was fighting a losing battle. John had to bang on the control panel to keep the warmth steady, but that wasn't the real problem anymore. Something was out there and it wasn't leaving. Vera sat in the corner, wrapped in a thermal blanket, her Yanni resting weakly on her lap. Its breathing was steadier now, but its tail still twitched from stress. The little creature sensed the danger, even if it couldn't name it. John knelt near the locked door, peeking through a tiny slit in the metal. He had turned off all lights, letting only the emergency lamp glow red inside. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. But the silence was worse. Too quiet, no wind, no crackling frost, no sound, except for the occasional crunching of footsteps circling the pod. Something was watching them suddenly scratch. A long, slow claw dragged across the pod's surface. John held up a hand. Don't move. His face was calm, but his eyes showed tension. It's the kind of tension that came from surviving wars, not just storms. Vera's heart raced. Her people always told stories of ice beasts, creatures who thrived in endless snow and fed on warmth. She had always thought they were just stories, but this felt real. John pulled out a heat sensor. One red dot moved slowly across the scanner, pacing around them like a predator waiting for weakness. He whispered, "It's testing us." Vera didn't understand his words, but she knew the meaning from his voice. Danger. Real danger. After 10 long minutes, John finally stood up and moved toward the back compartment. He opened a storage drawer, pulled out a small box, dropped it on the floor. Inside were food pouches. He tossed one too. She caught it without thinking. The human sat down across from her, opened his packet, and began to eat without a word. His hands shook slightly from cold and stress, but he forced himself to chew calmly. Vera unwrapped her food pouch. It smelled strange, salty, smoky, but her stomach growled louder than her doubts. She took a bite and froze. It was warm, soft. Her eyes widened in surprise. It tasted like roasted roots and meat paste, a flavor her people would consider low class. But she loved it. Her eyes lifted. She found John watching her. Not judging, just watching. She gave a small nod. He smiled. For the first time since she woke up, she took another bite without fear. Then dash, boom. The pod shook. Something had slammed into the wall outside. John jumped up, laser pistol in hand, and motioned her to stay back. "Stay calm," he said softly. Vera grabbed her Yanni and slid into the narrow crawl space behind the heater. Her body trembled, not just from fear, but from memory. This wasn't the first time she had hidden from something bigger than her. Back at the outpost, she had hidden the same way when the soldiers came to take away her bonded pet. She had refused to let go. That's why they called her useless. That's why they left her behind. Her hands clenched into fists. They threw me away, like I was nothing. John peeked through the view slit again. He could now see it, tall, six-limbed, covered in snow-white fur that blended with the frost. 2 glowing eyes, a long snout, and claws. Like jagged knives, it wasn't just some wild animal. It was hunting them, and it was smart. It was waiting. John took a deep breath and reached into another drawer. This time, he pulled out a small flame canister. Vera watched from her hiding spot as he rigged it near the door with a wire and a metal latch. She whispered to her Yanni, "He's going to fight it." The Yanni whimpered again and nudged her. Hands suddenly. The creature outside slammed against the door again, harder. The pod rocked. John braced himself near the trigger. He waited. Bang! The door gave a little, then crack. A claw punched through a seam. John didn't wait any longer. He pulled the trigger. Whoosh! Flames burst from the side vent, lighting up the snow outside. A horrible, high-pitched scream echoed through the frozen air as the creature was set ablaze. It crashed into the snow, rolling and howling. Then silence. The smell of burned hair filled the air. John lowered the trigger. Slowly, no movement. He exhaled. Vera crawled out from her hiding. Space. She saw the smoke, the human, the weapon, and the quiet. Then, she looked into his eyes. They were tired, but kind. And she knew something had changed. He wasn't just her rescuer anymore. He was her protector. Asterisk. The smell of burned fur still hung in the air. John dragged the creature's half-charred body into the snow, far from the pod's door. Steam rose off its back as snowflakes hissed and melted on contact. He knelt beside the body, checking its sharp claws, strange limbs, and the still glowing eyes, now dull with death. Then he noticed something that made him frown. A collar metal. Thin, blinking red. Not natural. Not wild. This thing had been sent. Back inside the pod, Vera sat by the heater, wrapping her pet tighter in the blanket. Her Yanni was better now, sleeping deeply, the wound healing slowly, but Vera didn't feel peace, not even a little. The flames that saved her also awakened something inside her chest, something buried. Painful, a memory. She was younger when the bonding ritual happened. Her people believed in soul links between their children and chosen creatures. It was rare, sacred, but when Vera bonded with her Yanni, the elders were disappointed. It's a low-born species, they whispered. She won't be strong, just emotional. They kept their smiles fake after that. They let her join school, but not combat training. She was a noble by blood, but treated like a cracked vase. When supplies ran low and cold spread across the outpost, her people made a decision. She and the creature are weak, said the leader. Let nature decide, another said coldly. She remembered her screams as they left in the shuttle, her banging fists against the frozen door. The silence that followed now, watching this strange human fix broken wires with frost-bitten hands, she wondered. Why didn't he leave me too? John walked back into the pod, holding the broken collar. He placed it on the table near her, then sat down, breathing hard. She looked at it, froze. Her hands began to shake. He pointed to the blinking light and said slowly, "This thing was tracking you." Vera didn't understand the words, but the tone, the gesture, the fear in his eyes. She understood enough, and she broke. Tears spilled from her eyes without permission. Her voice trembled, her body hunched forward. She held the Yanni close, like it was her last anchor. John reached out slowly, not touching her, just close. His voice lowered. "It's okay. You're safe now." She looked up through teary eyes. "No, not safe," she whispered in broken galactic common. John blinked. You speak?" She nodded slowly, tears falling faster. "They sent it for me." He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Why?" She bit her lip. "They hate weakness, my bond, my love for my pet. They said I was unfit, unworthy." John clenched his jaw. "These bastards tried to erase you." She didn't know what bastards meant, but she felt the anger in his voice on for the first time. It wasn't aimed at her. She told him everything, in slow, broken sentences. She explained how she was marked as non-useful to her noble family, how her bond with the Yanni was seen as a waste of royal blood, how they pretended she died in the cold, while secretly tagging her location for a drone beast to finish the job. John listened in silence, his fists slowly curling. Vera whispered, "I was supposed to die quietly." He looked at her firmly. "What? You didn't," she blinked. "You're here," he continued. Later that night, they both sat quietly, sharing a small warm drink. The Yanni stirred and crawled onto John's lap. He didn't push it away. He just looked down at it, then up at her. "It trusts me," he said. Vera smiled weakly. "Ah! It trusts. Good people." John looked toward the door. The wind outside had picked up again. More storms, more cold, and now, they both knew, more enemies could come. But this time, John wasn't just helping a stranger. He was standing between a child and the galaxy that tried to bury her. The wind screamed again that morning, but this time, It wasn't the storm outside that brought chills. It was the truth blinking silently from the corner of John's console, a signal, weak, encrypted, and not from Earth. John stared at the readout. The broken collar he'd recovered from the beast was now wired into his cum scanner. For hours, it had shown nothing, just a looped beacon now. It was sending something. Not a distress call, not a tracker. It was a reply. Someone out there had heard the beast's last breath, and they were sending another. Vera sat beside the heater, feeding small bits of dried ration to her Yanni. Her small fingers moved gently, lovingly. The little creature licked her hand with its tiny tongue and made soft purring sounds. She looked peaceful, but John knew better. He walked over and knelt beside her. "You need to hear this," he said, and gently turned the monitor toward her. The alien language flashed on the screen, but she recognized the code, the signature line at the bottom. Her eyes widened. Her lips trembled. "It's my family crest," she whispered. John's face hardened. "They're still watching you." She looked down. Her hands trembled. "They know I'm alive. They're sending another." John leaned forward. "Then we get out before it arrives." But she didn't move. She sat frozen in silence. "I can't," she finally said. "I can't go back. They'll find me. They'll lie. And I'll disappear again." John's voice was quiet but firm. "We don't go back to them," he tapped. "The broken transmitter. We go up off this rock." For hours, John worked to boost the escape pod's emergency signal. It wasn't built for long-range communication anymore, but it had a hidden feature one meant for deep space traders. A flare burst, a high-energy beam of light fired upward, coded with a human distress call. Problem was, it needed everything the pod had left. Power, fuel, backup battery. Once used, the pod would go dark. No heat, no lights, no second chances. As John rerouted power lines and calibrated the emitter, Vera sat nearby, her eyes watching the screen blink. "You would do this?" she asked softly. "For me?" John looked over his shoulder. "No," she blinked. "I'd do it for anyone left in the cold with no one to care." He returned to his work, but added without turning, "But yes, I'd do it for you too." That night, the pod was filled with a different kind of silence. Not fear, not cold, but the heavy, still silence that comes before a choice. John sat by the emitter, holding the final power switch. Vera held her pet close, wrapped in her blanket. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. He flipped the switch. The emitter rose from the emitter. Top of the pod, like a mechanical flower, hummed, then glowed, and blasted a single pulse of burning light into the stars. The entire pod shook. The lights went dark. The heater died. And for the first time in days, it was cold again. John returned to the dark pod, shivering already. He grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around Vera and her Yanni. He sat beside them, arms tight around her small form. "We wait," he whispered. She didn't speak. She just leaned her head on his chest. Outside, the storm returned. But inside, they faced it together. Minutes passed, then an hour. Then two. The cold bit into John's bones. Vera's hands turned pale, and just when everything felt hopeless, sound broke through the darkness. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy metal doors opening. A spotlight burned through the pod's window. A voice called out, "Human ID. John Keller. This is Rescue Craft Sierra Co." John's eyes widened. He grabbed Vera and held her tighter. "We're going home," he said. Vera looked up. "No," she whispered. "We're going somewhere new." The rescue ship's engines roared like thunder. Above the frozen wasteland, its landing gear pressed deep into the snow, steam rising from its hot metal belly. Blinding lights swept across the shattered ice, cutting through the fog like searchbeams from the gods. Vera had never seen a ship like this, not even her noble family used such heavy armor. This wasn't a medical shuttle, this was military inside. The pod. John tightened his grip on the young alien girl as the doors were pulled open by cold metal claws. Warm air flooded in, but it wasn't comforting. 2 armored soldiers in black exosuits entered human faces. Yes, but helmets stayed on. Weapons stayed raised. "Identify the passenger," one said sharply. John stood up, holding one hand in front. "Avira, she's under my protection." The soldiers didn't respond. Instead, one of them scanned Vera with a blue beam. The scanner blinked. Match confirmed. Royal genetic tag lineage, House Valcona. John turned to Vera. "That's your family?" She didn't answer. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She already knew what was happening. They had come for her, but not to save her, to claim her. The lead soldier tapped his helmet. "Target acquired. Permission to transfer to House Valcona escort." "Denied?" John snapped. The soldier paused. "Excuse me? She's not going with them? She is not yours to claim, human." The voice came cold through the speaker. John stepped in front of her. "She is not theirs to throw away again either." For a long second, no one moved. Then the other soldier raised his weapon. "Step aside." Vera stood. Her voice was soft but steady. "I choose him." Soldiers hesitated. That wasn't in their protocol. Alien miners didn't choose anything, especially not over noble bloodlines. The first soldier turned on his cum, requesting override. Subject is expressing personal rejection of lineage. Possible rebellion. A pause. Then a voice replied through static. "Use force if needed. Retrieve the bloodline. Eliminate the human if resistance continues." John's jaw clenched. Of course they want me dead," he muttered. He turned toward the pod's rear wall and opened a secret panel, something even the soldiers didn't notice. Inside was a red cylinder, a charge pack. His last explosive, he wired it quickly, whispering, "To Vera, take your Yanni and stay low. No matter what happens, run toward the mountain ridge when I say go." She grabbed his arm. "You'll die." John looked down at her, grimy, shivering, scared but brave. "Better men than me have died doing less." He smiled sadly. "Me do something right." The soldiers stepped forward. "We won't ask again," the leader growled. John held up his detonator. "You don't get to ask again." They froze. "What is that?" One barked. "Enough power to bury us all under 10 feet of snow." John's eyes turned cold. "Try me." Vera whispered something in her language, soft and trembling. Then louder she spoke in broken common. "I do not belong to them." The soldiers hesitated. Their training hadn't prepared them for a child. It's defying royal law, especially not a child protected by a mad human with a bomb in his hand. Suddenly, dash beep. A third signal appeared on the COMM's, another ship, approaching fast. John checked the scanner. "Human rescue squad," he whispered. He turned to Vera. "Help is here. Real help." The soldiers heard it too. "You called more," the leader snapped. "Of course," John replied. "Want like being outnumbered." The soldiers backed up, unsure. Then the sky boomed again. This time, the roar of Earth's engines. A Terran defense skiff broke through the clouds, armed and clearly unfriendly. The soldiers stepped outside, receiving new orders. Vera held her Yanni close and whispered, "Are we safe now?" John looked at the smoke above, the fire below, and the girl who chose him over a throne. "Not yet," he said. "But we just changed everything." The Terran defense skiff hovered like a giant silver hawk, its belly door opening with a hiss of steam. Uniformed humans, real soldiers. Not mercenaries, rushed out with weapons lowered and scanners ready. Inside the broken pod, Vera watched wide-eyed, clutching her Yanni as the glowing warmth of hope finally pushed away the ice in her chest. John stood beside her, still holding the detonator. "You don't need that anymore," said the lead rescue officer calmly. John didn't lower it at first. He still didn't trust anyone, not yet. "Whose orders are you under?" he asked. The officer replied firmly, "Captain Silas Thorn-Terran, peace accord. We received your emergency flare. We're not here for her bloodline. We're here because you said a child was in danger." John's fingers slowly released the detonator, for the first time since crashing here. Exhaled. Vera was escorted gently into the warmth of the rescue ship. A medic gave her a blanket and scanned her vitals. The Yanni was treated for its wounds and given food. It purred like a soft engine in her lap. She had never seen such kindness from strangers. No one barked orders. No. One looked at her with shame. No. One tried to pull her pet away. John stepped into the medical bay and sat across from her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Warm, safe." Then her eyes lowered. "But they will come again, my family. They won't stop." John leaned forward. "They won't get you. Not if you don't want to go." Vera looked confused. "But I'm royal. My name is branded to duty." John smiled softly. "Funny thing about humans, we believe names can be rewritten." She blinked. "No one owns you, Vera. Not them. Not me. Not even the stars." Her eyes widened at the thought. "Then? Am I?" John leaned back, crossing his arms. You're free." It's the next day at a neutral outpost station floating in orbit. A message arrived. Official. Gold seal. Digital signature House Velcona demands return of their lost asset. John stood beside the human diplomat as Vera read the words. Her fingers gripped the edge of the datapad. Her voice was soft but firm. "I'm not an asset." The diplomat looked at her. "You have the right to reply?" She pressed record. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "To House Velcana, you left me to freeze. You sent a beast to end me. You treated me like garbage. But I survived. Not because of you, Boot. Because a human gave me warmth, food, and a choice. I choose not to return. My name is still Vera, but it is mine now." She pressed send, and it was done. Weeks passed. Vera remained on the human station under protective status. Other alien refugees came and went, but she stayed, learning common, helping in the medical bay with her Yanni, who now wore a tiny bandage on one ear like a badge of pride. John was cleared to leave too, but he did not yet. One morning, she brought him a datapad with 2 forms on it. "What's this?" he asked. "Paperwork," she said shyly. "Paperwork for what?" She looked down, blushing for staying. "With you?" John raised a brow. "You want to stay with me?" "I'm not good alone," she said softly, "but with you." Strong. He looked into her eyes. Those eyes had once been filled with frost and fear. Now they held fire. "I'm not good with kids," said. "You're not bad either," she replied. He chuckled, then signed the forms. 6 months later, the storm planet Valexianine was declared unsafe for habitation. House Velcana lost its trade rights with the Terran Alliance after the discovery of its cruelty, and a small alien girl once called worthless became a quiet symbol of something new. Not war, not politics, but healing and second chances. Vera walked through the garden level of the space station, her Yanni bouncing beside her. John sat on a bench, reading a repair manual. She dropped a tiny box in his lap. He opened it. Inside was a handmade tag. "Team Keller." He looked at her. She smiled. "You said humans believe names can change." She said. He nodded. Double quotes. "Well," she added, "I think I've found mine."